my friends, welcome back to the channel. Philip the Pilot here with another video. Wednesday, January 11th at 0600 Eastern Time, the FAA issued an immediate ground stop for all domestic flights within the United States due to a software failure. Today, I will tell you what that software failure was, why it's important, and why the system failed. Specifically, the FAA was referring to an acronym NOTAMs, N-A-T-A-M. Originally, NOTAM stood for Notice to Airman. Recently, the FAA has changed it to mean Notice to Air Mission System. This change was made to make the system more inclusive. NOTAMs are a way for the FAA to quickly disseminate any changes in the operational capability of the airport, of nav aids, or anything that the FAA thinks can impede the safe operation of the National Airspace System, or NAS. To describe this system, I will do a mock flight. I will use a flight as an example. The FAA mandates that as a flight crew, I need to be aware, or I must be able to gather as much information as I possibly can on my flight. That includes everything I need to know about my departure airport, everything I need to know about my route, and everything I need to know about my destination airport. The FAA is legally, through an act of Congress, is legally responsible to provide this information. I need to know such things as what's the weather en route, what's the weather at my departure airport, what's the weather at my destination airport. I also need to know if there are any runway closures, if portions of the runway are no longer usable. I need to know if there are men and equipment operating on or near the runway. I need to know if there are any taxiway closures, and I need to know if there is any lighting issues at the airport, such as the approach lighting system, whether it's working or not, such as the instrument landing system, or ILS, whether the glide slope is working or whether it is not working, whether the approach lighting system is working or not, if the taxiway lighting system is working, if the runway end identification light is working or not. All this information is provided through NOTAMs. Let's say today we're doing a flight from Jackson Hole, Wyoming to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I get up in the morning, I check my flight plan, make sure it is filed. I check the weather at my departure airport, en route, and my destination. Once I check the weather, the next thing a good pilot will go and check is the NOTAMs, Notice to Air Mission System. As I've stated, it will quickly tell you whatever will impact the operational status of that airport. So I checked it, and it told me that taxiway Foxtrot, or taxiway F, at Jackson Hole is closed. That simply means I am not able to use that taxiway for the purpose of transitioning from where I am parked to the runway. But how do I know? How does the FAA get the information to tell me that that taxiway has been closed? Well, at specific times, one individual who is part of the airport operating team gets in a vehicle and drives the length of the runways to make sure the runways and the taxiways are in proper operating form. And let's say on this one day, they checked taxiway F or taxiway Foxtrot. They found there is a big chunk of pavement missing. There's a pothole in the middle of the taxiway. Obviously, that taxiway is now unusable. He or she will let their supervisor know. The supervisor will let the FAA know, and the supervisor and the FAA in turn will quickly issue a NOTAM for that airport nationwide. So now every airplane or every pilot that's thinking about going to or leaving Jackson Hole will know that taxiway F or Foxtrot is unavailable. But I'm the pilot. You're thinking, well, how does the pilot know that this thing how does the pilot know that taxiway Foxtrot is closed? I can look on my iPad, I can find it there, or when I listen to the airport weather, which is a pre-recorded message either by a person or an artificial intelligence. It will give me the weather. It will give me the wind speed, the wind direction, what's the altimeter setting, what's the temperature, what's the dew point. And at the end of all that, it will say NOTAMs. And it will read out everything that is abnormal about that airport. In the case of Jackson Hole, it will say NOTAMs, taxiway Foxtrot closed. NOTAMs don't tell you why the taxiway is closed. It doesn't give us a reason. It just says it is closed. Anytime there is a sudden change to the operational capability of the airport, a NOTAMs is issued. Okay. So why is this important? It would be like flying blind. When on our flight from Jackson Hole to Fort Lauderdale, I need to know if Fort Lauderdale Airport is still there, whether it's there or if it's underwater. A NOTAM tells me that. It is information that the pilot desperately needs to effectively plan his or her flight and to safely execute it. This is just the NOTAMs for the airport. Then there are en route NOTAMs or national NOTAMs. When we're flying along on our route, we are navigating via GPS, VOR, NDB, and we use something called DME, called distance measuring equipment. It lets me know how far I am from one nav aid to a specific point. 25 miles on either side of my navigation line, I need to check to make sure those navigation aids are working or if they are not working. And the reason I need to know that is if there is an emergency and I need to fall back on my VOR if my GPS fails, I can quickly tune in that VOR and continue my flight. A really good place where this always happens is in Nevada. There is a part of Nevada where your GPS may fail at times, switching you back to VOR navigation or NDB. If one of these systems fail, it doesn't impact your ability to conduct a flight, but it does determine or it does change how you do your flight. Instead of using GPS, if the GPS system fails, I'm going to have to use a VOR. If the GPS system is working but it's not giving me distances, I will need my DME to get my distance measuring. Okay? That's why it is very important for us to have this information. Apart from safety, the FAA is legally responsible through the Act of Congress to provide this information for us as pilots. Okay. Why the system failed? The government is always slow to update its system. This is how the process normally works. And I know this because, as you all know, I was in the Navy. Let's say the FAA decides to update its NOTAM systems, as they were trying to do when the system failed. The system is old. They're updating an antiquated system for a more robust aviation sector. So they may decide, well, first of all, Congress has to pass a bill. That alone is going to take like 1,000 years, the way things are going. But let's say Congress got its act together and it happened to pass a bill that grant the FAA permission to update its system. And that took 12 months. The FAA then needs to consult with some of the big tech giants within the country to figure out what system or what type of updates is appropriate for what they want to do. That itself may take about 3 years. And it's not taking 3 years because the big tech giants in the US are incapable of coming up with a system quick. It's because of the FAA process. That's already 4 years. After they come up with the process, they have to put forward it into the public for a public review. That may take anywhere between a year to a year and 18 months. They get the results back, they go back to the big tech companies, they make whatever changes, and they decide we're gonna do it. We're now into like year 5, almost 6. They then have to put out a bidding process. The government don't just say, oh, let's just build this, let's just do it, and it's gonna be fine. They have to put it out there and invite people to bid to build the system. Say they put it out there, they may have the bidding system for 6 months, they may have it for 12 months, they may have it for 3 months, however long they want to have it. They put it out there, bid, they get a competitive bid back, they decide to build it. Fine. Well, now it's like year 7. The problem is, by the time they start to build the system in year 7, the technology that they're using that was approved to build is already old. It's 7 years old. So as taxpayers, we always end up paying for the government to build an old system. This is the problem with the FAA. This is why the system failed. It's an antiquated system that's being used to run a robust aviation sector. It wasn't built to do this. This is the same reason why the Southwest system failed, that caused them to cancel some 15,000 flights during the holiday. It's a lack of a proactive effort on the government part that's left us in this position where many flights got grounded and canceled 11th of January at 6 a.m. Eastern time for you non-military types. Okay, guys, I think that's it for this one. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions on anything I've said, please leave them below and I will respond to them. Until next time, be good.